run away, not...
It happened during a family summer road trip when we stopped at a rest area. Suddenly, the woman working at the store whispered something in my ear. But as soon as she noticed my husband calling my name, she vanished without a trace. I was completely bewildered by this fleeting, ghost-like event. But the shocking truth revealed by a photograph I later saw was beyond my wildest imagination. Lies. Could this really be happening? And when I finally understood the mysterious words of that woman, my daughter Emily and my summer vacation turned into a nightmare. My name's Christine, a 35-year-old office worker. I'm divorced with an 8-year-old daughter. 5 years post-divorce, I've been living with my daughter Emily with the support of my parents back home. I'd sworn off men, but met Mike through a friend a year ago, and things progressed to remarriage rather quickly. He runs an IT business and is responsible, kind to both me and Emily, and sincere. Moreover, both of us had divorced due to our ex-spouse's infidelity, which I think made it easier for us to tie the knot. Both being divorces, skipped the ceremony and just moved in with him, starting our married life together. I finally felt a sense of peace and happiness I hadn't known in a long time. But the peaceful life didn't last long. 6 months into our marriage, Mike's business began to falter. He visibly withered as he ran around trying to keep things afloat. I gave him some of my modest savings, but it was like a drop in the bucket. And then a few days later, an event that tore our marriage apart occurred.
Hey, what's this? You've been hiding this from me? I came home to find Mike holding something that made my blood run cold.
It was a bank book in Emily's name with about $50,000. It was money given by my former in-laws when my ex-husband refused to pay alimony. Back then, I was so eager to get divorced as quickly as possible that I had given up on child support from my ex-husband. So, I was really grateful for the financial help from my former in-laws. I tucked it away as a CD for my daughter's future. I should have hidden that bank book better. I regretted it, but it was too late. I'm sorry. I wasn't hiding it, but I'm sorry. Estimations of execute player, but it wasn't hiding it, but I hesitated, torn over whether I should give the money to Mike. Right at that moment, a friend who had introduced us told me that Mike's business failing was inevitable. But I couldn't tell him that.
You're so heartless. You know I'm struggling, and yet.
I suggested he shut down his business and start over, but it only added fuel to his fire.
You ungrateful woman. I married you, an older woman with a kid, and this is how you repay me. I'll make you regret this.
He didn't return for days. I was left wondering why life had come to this as the word divorce began to loom in my mind. The word divorces briefly crossed my mind.
Mom, is Dad really busy with work?
Looking at my worried daughter Emily's face, I felt a sense of unease, wondering if she would lose her father again. Don't worry, honey. Dad will be home soon. I was waiting for Mike's return, praying to myself that he'd be back soon. Maybe my prayers were answered because he told me he'd managed to come up with the money. After storming out of the house in a fit of rage, seeing my husband's cheerful face was a huge relief from the bottom of my heart.
Sorry for making you worry.
It's okay. I should be the one apologizing for not understanding your struggles.
How about we make up and go on a family vacation? Emily's on summer break. How about we go to the beach?
Emily was thrilled with Mike's suggestion. Actions, I, wanting to mend our relationship, immediately requested time off from work. We decided to head to a beach house near the ocean owned by a friend of Mike's. We set off for the 3-hour drive. Ike at the wheel. On the way, we stopped at a rest area. While Mike and Emily enjoyed some ice cream, I shopped at the store. Just as I was leaving the store, I heard a voice behind me. I turned around to see a woman standing there. "You forgot this." She handed me my phone, and I realized she was the cashier from earlier. Thanking her, I accepted my phone, but then something shocking happened.
Out of the blue, she leaned in close to me and whispered urgently in my ear, "Run away right now."
Siri, I was about to take a second look at the woman's face when I was startled, but just as I heard my husband and daughter calling out for me from behind, she quickly turned away and disappeared. What just happened? I scanned the store, but she was nowhere to be seen. Is something wrong? No, nothing. Although suspicious, I didn't mention it to Mike. Soon we arrived at the beach house and went to the nearby beach.
Let's go see the stars at a hidden tape nearby tonight.
Mike's suggestion made Emily ecstatic, and I soon forgot about the mysterious woman. Hours later, I had to make a work-related call, so we headed back to the beach house.
Then my daughter Emily chimed in, saying, "I need to go to the bathroom."
So we woke up my husband, who was taking a nap on the beach, and the two of us left the scene. As soon as we got to our vacation home, Emily, who had been holding it in, accidentally kicked my husband's Boston bag that was on the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. As I was picking things up, I found a bag of sleeping pills and paused. Why would Mike have these? Is he stressed and unable to sleep? Just as I was lost in thought, my smartphone buzzed to signal an incoming call. It was my friend and confidant, suddenly.
"I thought I should let you know something that's been bothering me."
After some late chit-chat, she got to the point of the phone call, which was about my husband. Both Natalie and I had been told that Mike was divorced, but it turns out his former wife actually died in an accident. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming he didn't want to talk about his sad past. But as Natalie kept talking, I began to realize the gravity of the situation. And apparently, the accident involving Mike's former wife happened 3 years ago. It happened at the very beach where I am right now.
There was a huge life insurance policy on her.
Mike was questioned by the police, but there wasn't enough evidence, so it was ruled as an accident. Ellie said. Upon hearing those words, I felt a chill run down my spine. Actually, soon after we got married, Mike suggested that we both take out insurance policies with each other as beneficiaries.
Furthermore, when I looked at the photo Natalie sent to my phone, saying she managed to get a picture of Mike's former wife. I was speechless.
The woman standing next to my husband was the same woman who had whispered "run" to me at a highway rest area.
So she's really gone, right?
I was utterly confused, but my immediate priority was to escape.
Emily, put on your clothes right now.
I hurriedly changed my daughter out of her swimsuit, grabbed her stuff, and rushed out of the beach house. I remembered there was a police station on the way here, so I ran towards it as fast as I could. Emily, not understanding what was going on, did her best to keep up. "Help me, please." I reached the police station and stuttered as I began to say, "My husband..." What the hell should I say? This question loomed large in my mind. Still, I racked my brain trying to figure out how to alert the police about the imminent danger closing in on me.
Yet, I heard a G as hey from behind me.
Turning around, there was Mike, who had followed us by car. I was paralyzed with fear.
I was worried about you. Officer, I apologize.
He lied smoothly and flashed a friendly smile, apologizing to the cop.
Deceived by Mike's charisma, the officer even chided me, saying I shouldn't worry my husband like that.
However, I noticed that despite his calm exterior, Mike's eyes were not smiling. And I realized that speaking out now without any evidence would simply be dismissed as my imagination.
I'm sorry. Let's go home.
I thanked a police officer and left the station.
I had some sudden issues at work. I had to go back. I was planning to ask for directions to the train station at the police station.
You should told me first.
I thought you were napping and didn't want to disturb you. I was planning to call you once we were on the train.
Mike didn't look convinced by my excuses as he stared at me suspiciously.
I'll call work again to see if someone else can handle it.
I kept away from his suspicious gaze. I stepped back and pretended to make a call. Then I lied, saying that it was no longer necessary to go back. Then I lied, saying that it was no longer necessary to go back, and we decided to return to the beach house. You see him, if Mike is after my life, I'll thwart him with my own hands, and I'll expose his past sins. As I was being driven in his car, I made up my mind and silently mustered up my fighting spirit. Back at the beach house after dinner, Emily, tired from playing, looked sleepy. She still begged to go see the stars, but I persuaded her to wait until tomorrow and took her to the bedroom. "All right, it's adult time now. Let's have a relaxed drink together tonight. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a bit tired too. Would it be okay if I slept with Emily?" "Hey, don't say something so lonely. It's only 8 p.m. Actually, I have some vitamins that are really good for fatigue. What my husband offered me was, in fact, that notorious sleeping pill. This is it, I thought, and decided to confirm my husband's true intentions. "Hey, this isn't a vitamin, it's a sleeping pill, right?" "I'm sorry. I saw the bag that pill came in." "You mean 3 years ago? Did you kill Sophia like that too?" At the mention of his late wife's name, my husband clearly stiffened, but then burst into loud laughter. "Haha, Peril, it scores stamps. I thought your attitude was weird. Is that what you've been thinking? I don't know who told you about Sophia, but that was an accident. You're the strange one here. So why did you lie about being divorced and even took me to the site of your late wife's accident? What's the reason you went out of your way to bring me here? Oh, is that what you're mad about? I'm sorry. I was insensitive. Please cheer up. I apologize. And fine, then you take that vitamin right now. My husband was dodging the issue, but when he heard that, he lost his temper and revealed his true self. Ah, this is so annoying. Yes, I did it. He then admitted that he had staged his previous wife's death to look like an accident to collect the insurance money 3 years ago. Now it's your turn. That's sexual CCs. The compassionate one will go to the accident site to pay respects to Sophia, and you'll slip and fall into the ocean. Please don't lay a hand on Emily. My husband took out a rope and tied my hands as I begged him in tears. Sure, you're enough. Hurting a kid like that won't even net me a cent. He then dragged me to the parking lot, shoved me into the back seat, and started driving. In the car, Mike was in high spirits, detailing how he had killed his previous wife.
She was a foolish woman, but you were even easier.
Eventually, we arrived at the scene, and he pulled me out of the car and led me to the cliff.
Goodbye.
My husband tried to untie the rope from my hand and aimed to push me into the ocean. As he was about to push me off the cliff, I grabbed his shirt, executed a perfect shoulder throw, and pinned him down, twisting his wrist. At that moment, headlights illuminated us, and running towards us was my friend Natalie, who had come to rescue me. I'd been recording my conversation with my husband on my smartphone while also being on the line with her.
I'm sorry. Christine, I feel terrible for introducing you to such a terrible man. Talk later. Add that rope.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. What the hell is going on? Did you trick me?
My husband was disoriented by my sudden counterattack and the appearance of my friend. Don't flatter yourself by thinking we tricked you. Actually, Natalie and I had taken judo classes in the past and had learned some basic self-defense moves. Sorry for seeming like an easy target, but I'm not dumb enough to fall for your tricks. My friend and I tightly restrained the fiercely resisting husband, wrapping him up in duct tape we found in Natalie's car purely for self-defense.
Stop it. Help, man, you're such a pain.
Why don't we just toss him in the ocean? We can just say he fell in by himself.
Please don't talk like that. I beg you, please forgive me.
We made light of the situation as we loaded my wailing husband into the car, and then we drove straight to the police station to hand him over. You really shouldn't underestimate women. I said my goodbyes to my husband and submitted the audio recordings to the police. What was really puzzling, though, was how Natalie managed to arrive so quickly at the scene, which was in a hard-to-find location. Wow, you got here without getting lost.
Actually, I was wandering around. A passerby woman showed me the way, but I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. Yeah, it's like a sense of déjà vu or something.
Could it be Sophia, Mike's ex? Weiss?
When I grinned mischievously, Emily's eyes widened like saucers. Later, Mike faced serious charges for a past incident that was reinvestigated, as well as for the current attempted crime. He was sent to prison. I divorced him and claimed $40,000, including loaned money as alimony. He sold his only property, an apartment, to pay me and his ex-wife's parents. Butcher, on the other hand, I got back to my peaceful life with Emily. Ever since the incident, we've been attending a local martial arts dojo together. After things settled down, Emily and I took Emily to the family home of Sophia, my husband's ex-wife. I felt like the smiling face in Sophia's memorial portrait was giving us a warm, approving nod.
I hate to say this, but you should divorce your husband immediately.
My eyes widened in disbelief.
What? Divorce?
The doctor silently nods. I thought I was going to hear about my husband's health checkup results, but instead I'm advised to divorce him. My mind is in a panic. I'm Emily Johnson, a 32-year-old housewife. I currently have a 5-month-old daughter. I met my husband, at a speed dating event. He was a carpenter working for a local construction firm. He's a year older than me. Tom followed in his father's footsteps as a carpenter. He's very dedicated to his job, the epitome of a craftsman's. He is the focus to see things through to the end, no matter what. He's also handy and skilled at detailed work. I genuinely admired him for all these traits. There weren't many women at Tom's workplace, so he didn't have many chances to meet someone. So he ended up attending the speed dating event, which is where I also decided to participate for similar reasons. Actually, I joined for the same reason. Is to be an office worker, and the only man in the office was a boss in his 50s. Everyone else was female. I went to the party seeking a connection. That's where I met Tom. The first time Tom and I, he was not very talkative and the conversation didn't really take off. But when he talked about his work as a carpenter, his eyes would light out. I could envision his dedication to his work. I was drawn to him for that reason. After marrying Tom, life has been smooth sailing, just as I'd hoped. He occasionally goes out for work-related drinks, but he generally heads straight home after work. He even does DIY projects around the house, like building shelves in little nooks and crannies. Since he's good with detail work, he's meticulous about cleaning too. Like for me, Tom is the perfect husband. Soon after, I became pregnant. We were right in the middle of our happy days as a married couple. That's when I noticed a sudden change in Tom. He started coming home later and later.
It's just work stuff.
According to him, there had been a lot more work-related get-togethers lately. Still, it seemed a bit excessive. There were times when Tom would come home late into the night. It wasn't like this when we first got married. Watching Tom collapse into bed the moment he got home. I started to feel sorry for him. He must be worn out from work and social obligations. This went on for a while, and I could see dark circles forming under his eyes. He seemed distracted and his face looked drained. His complexion worsened and he wasn't eating much anymore. There were days when Tom felt so unwell he had to take a day off from work. This went on for a while until one particular day. And on that day, Tom came home around 6:30 p.m., which was unusually early.
I'm home.
I said, surprised by his early return.
If you were going to be home this early, you could have given me a heads up. I'd have started dinner sooner.
I said this as I headed to the kitchen. Tom silently sat down on the couch and let out a heavy sigh, and a lurid Then suddenly, he said, I got fired. And I froze, staring at him.
Like fired? What do you mean?
He didn't answer, just hung his head as if weighed down by the world. After a while, he began to explain. Recently, I've been making a lot of mistakes and just can't focus on work anymore. He'd been warned several times by his boss, but nothing had changed. Eventually, they told him, we can't trust you with this anymore, and he was taken off assignments. Hence, the construction company where Tom works doesn't have many employees. And Tom had been with his construction firm for over a decade and was one of the key players. Suddenly, his work began to slip, and he started making errors left and right. But despite his colleagues' best efforts to cover for him, you can't have a floundering worker in a field that depends on customer satisfaction. The complaints started pouring in, putting the company's future at risk. Eventually, he was called in by the owner and let go. That's awful. That forced to attend so many after-hours work functions that his health suffered, and then they just fire him. I was livid at the company, seeing how worn out Tom looked. I couldn't help but feel sympathy. What should I say to him? We're expecting a baby in a few months. If his income stops, we'll face financial difficulties. Such all these thoughts cloud my mind. But what worries me most is his failing health. Tom, have you thought about going to the doctor? I cautiously suggest this to him. You've been losing your appetite, and you seem unwell lately.
A doctor, huh?
Tom responds weakly. I know the job situation is shocking, but let's get some tests done to make sure you're all right. He used to get annual checkups at work, but now that he's been fired, he has to take care of it himself. Next vigil tea, though he wasn't enthusiastic. I went ahead and scheduled the tests. So, on the day of the checkup, I went to the hospital, sitting close to visibly drained Tom. The place is a well-regarded private clinic around here. Tom disappeared into a back room to undergo some tests. I sat in the waiting room, anxiously hoping for the best for him, praying that they wouldn't find anything seriously wrong. Noon comes around. The tests should be wrapping up soon. As I anxiously wait, a nurse comes over. You're Mrs. Johnson, right? I was taken aback when suddenly addressed. The doctor would like to see you. Please follow me. The nurse said to me, pointing in the direction we should go. Okay. He confused. I got up and followed the nurse. I could feel my heart trembling. I could feel my heart rate speeding up. Could it mean they found something serious with my husband? But that's strange. I was puzzled. We're supposed to get the test results back in a week. Is it common to be called in like this right after the tests? Lost in thought, I found myself standing in front of the door the nurse led me to. Let the sign on the door read Chief Physician's Office. I was surprised. I had thought I was being led to an exam room. I'd been to this hospital several times, but had never once set foot in the chief physician's office. As the door opened, the nurse left. "Excuse me," I said, entering the room with a slight bow. "Hello." The chief physician, a dignified man in his 60s with streaks of gray in his hair, greeted. I sat down as he gestured toward the chair. Dr. Williams looked at me and asked, "Oh, you're pregnant?" "Yes."
I see. And how far along are you?
7 months.
I see.
After his response, Dr. Williams sighed quietly while looking at my large belly.
So, the baby will be here soon, huh?
He looked down, seemingly lost in thought. Then, raising his face, he looked at me directly and said, "Listen, Emily." I could feel myself tensing up.
As much as I hate to say this, you should consider divorcing Tom immediately.
My eyes widened in shock. "What? Divorce?"
Dr. Williams nodded silently.
I couldn't understand. We were here today to check if anything was wrong with Tom's health. Being called in like this, I assumed the worst. Perhaps some severe illness had been found. Ever did I dream I'd hear the word divorces coming from Dr. Williams' mouth. Completely bewildered, Dr. Williams began to explain the situation in detail. Is this some kind of joke? Tom did what? I couldn't believe what I'd just heard from Dr. Williams. It felt like I was stuck in a terrible dream. This has to be a dream. No matter how many times I repeated it to myself, nothing changed. I was smack dab in the middle of reality. I left Dr. Williams' office and sat down on a chair in the waiting room, in a daze. Just then, Bob, who had finished his tests, walked in. His expression was as vacant as ever. We went home and had lunch. There was barely any conversation between us. That afternoon, Item said, "I'm going out to clear my head," and left. I sat alone in the house. I felt utterly floored by what I had heard at the hospital. After sitting dazed for a while, I casually looked around the house. It was quite messy. Maybe I should clean. The thought suddenly crossed my mind. Desperate to distract myself, I started cleaning the house frantically. I wanted to forget what I'd heard. I wanted to believe it was all a lie. I wanted to escape reality. I just wanted to go back to living my normal life. Maybe that's how I was feeling. I moved from the kitchen to the living room, cleaning one space after another. Even with my growing belly, I couldn't stop my hands. I entered Tom's room and transferred the contents of his trash can into a large garbage bag. That's when I noticed a crumpled up piece of paper with Tom's handwriting. What could this be? Curiosity got the better of me, and I unfolded the paper to read it. It was a personal letter, filled with Tom's handwriting.
The only one I love is you. I'm prepared to protect you and your daughter for life. I want to marry Luna, even if I have to abandon my own family.
After reading it all, I felt like I could faint from shock. There were multiple drafts of the letter in the trash can, all crumpled up and discarded with similar content. He must have thought they wouldn't be discovered, given they were buried under other trash. But when I tipped over the trash can to transfer the garbage, the letters at the bottom caught my eye. So the information Dr. Williams had given me was true after all. I remembered again what Dr. Williams told me earlier today. Take a look at this picture. What Dr. Williams showed me was a photo of Tom's abdomen. Tom has a brown birthmark next to his navel. It has a unique shape, like a sideways heart. I was born with it, I remember Tom saying. Dr. Williams told me that with Tom's consent, he took the abdominal photo during a health checkup. Next, he brought out what seemed to be his personal smartphone and showed me an image. The image was quite unsettling. That it was of a man hanging from the edge of an upper floor, descending to the balcony below. Because his arms are raised, his shirt has ridden up, exposing his belly. Like the cults, the same birthmark next to the navel that Tom has is clearly visible. Dr. Williams zoomed in on just the birthmark to show me. Sure enough, it was Tom's mark. Upon all straight braid, the bastoperictories was not visible. The bit of the shirt and pants that could be seen were certainly Tom's. The image was taken from inside a room. I have a daughter who is 35. She lives in a condo right in front of South Park. South Park is in a quiet residential area, and the condos are charming, 3-story tiled buildings. It's about a 15-minute drive from our place. My daughter Luna is living there. Her husband is currently working abroad. She's living with her 3rd-grade daughter. Lately, Luna's been troubled by a creepy guy who's been stalking her. Like when she goes out on the balcony to do laundry, she spots this guy watching her from the street. Apparently, Luna had mentioned how uncomfortable she felt to Dr. Williams and his spouse several times. Even when Luna's walking with her daughter, she says she can feel this guy staring from behind. Late at night, she peeks out her window, and sure enough, the guy is looking up. Just the thought of it gives me the chills. I have a son in his 30s, Luna's younger brother. My son and I decided to stake out Luna's apartment to check for this guy. We sent Luna and her daughter to my place, turned off the lights, and watched. What they saw was truly unsettling, just like the picture I saw earlier. The guy literally climbed down onto the balcony from above. I was so shocked. I ran straight for the balcony. My son quickly snapped a photo with his phone for evidence. This is that photo. Dr. Williams seemed quite worked up recalling the event. As I approached the window, the guy must have noticed. He hastily climbed over the railing and down to the balcony below. Then she dashed off the property. Did you contact the police? Absolutely. The security cameras only caught the back of him, though. They've been investigating, but no lead so far. Then, during a medical checkup, Dr. Williams noticed a bruise on his husband's abdomen identical to the one on the suspect. Seeing the bruise on my husband's belly,
seeing the bruise on my husband's belly.
Dr. Williams immediately took a picture of my husband's abdomen on the spot. After confirming that the bruise on the intruding man matched perfectly with the one in the photo, Dr. Williams called me into the waiting room.
I want to report this to the police right away. But considering you're pregnant, I felt I should talk to you first.
Dr. Williams said this with a pained expression on his face.
You are the wife of a criminal, and the child you're carrying would be the child of a criminal.
As much as I don't want to let this go, I won't hesitate to contact the police if you decide to divorce him. He's hearing this from Dr. Williams. My mind went blank as I left his office. I couldn't believe my husband was stalking a housewife with a child, even climbing up to her apartment balcony. Then again, my husband being a carpenter could easily scale an apartment. I thought, to make matters worse, I found love letters from my husband at home. Now that I've seen this much evidence, I have no choice but to face reality. I still wonder how my husband even got to know this woman and developed feelings for her in the first place. So many questions and so little answers. My eyes drift back to the letter once again.
I want to leave my wife and unborn child to marry Luna. My husband's letter read.
So he plans to abandon me, his wife, and our unborn child for another woman and her daughter. He's never even spoken to her, and yet he feels this way. His imagination is something else. But there's no way I can continue a married life with a man like this. I've made up my mind. I get up and leave the house. And they headed straight to the police station. The week goes by, and the day comes for us to get the results of my prenatal checkup. Em and I head to the hospital together. Eventually, we're called into Dr. Williams' office. Tom looks puzzled, wondering why we're in the doctor's office instead of an examination room.
Richard Johnson, about your checkup results.
Dr. Williams starts speaking deliberately.
Nothing abnormal was found with your health. However, pausing briefly, Dr. Williams leans in and says, you seem to be engaging in some pretty abnormal behavior.
Huh.
Tom's face turns into a look of confusion.
Is this you?
Dr. Williams pulls out his smartphone and shows Tom the incriminating photo of him on the balcony. Tom's eyes widen, and he freezes on the spot.
When you came in for your checkup last week, I noticed the same bruise on your belly.
What are the odds of identifying a suspect like this? Even I was surprised. Dr. Williams said, leaning closer to my husband, Tom,
the balcony is part of my daughter's apartment complex.
Dr. Williams' deep voice resonated in the room. Tom looked shocked and started to get up from his chair, seemingly ready to flee. I shot him a stern look, grabbed his shoulder, and forced him back into his seat.
What the hell are you doing, man? You've got a wife and an unborn child.
Dr. Williams finally let his anger burst out. Suddenly, the door opened and a woman walked in.
You didn't need to come.
It seemed this woman was Luna. She's the person Tom had fallen for. She's certainly attractive, but also seems pretty assertive.
Hey, you! Stop staring at my balcony. It's creepy.
Luna confronted Tom, who looked flustered.
Well, but you were looking at me too, weren't you?
Tom started desperately explaining. He'd been working on a roof across from Luna's apartment for a renovation job. And he noticed a woman, Luna, watching him from her balcony. Just over time, Tom felt like she was intently watching him.
Since our eyes met so often, I just thought you were interested in me.
Tom said to Luna,
You've got it all wrong. I was just watching my daughter playing in the park because I was concerned. I wasn't looking at you.
Huh.
Tom seemed at a loss for words, visibly shocked.
My daughter loves playing with her friends in the park, which is fine, but I've heard there've been some suspicious folks there.
She'd get annoyed if I went down to the park, so I had no choice but to watch from my balcony. Luna's apartment faces a narrow street that leads to a park, so she could easily keep an eye on it.
I thought you were looking at me.
What? Why would I stare at some construction worker? Creepy.
It seems Tom had started developing feelings for Luna because he thought she was watching him from her balcony every day. According to him, Luna seemed to be sending a save me's look. Hearing this, Luna kept saying, "What?" and creepy. I was next to Tom, listening and getting chills. It was surprising to see this side of Tom, who is usually so down-to-earth. Recent Tom has rarely dated, so perhaps all that pent-up romantic energy exploded in a twisted way. Tom has rarely dated, so perhaps all a twisted way. Luna, I'll join in here. A man in a suit entered the room, saying this. Saying a man in a suit entered the room. I'm Luna's husband. Tom's eyes widened.
Huh, husband? I thought Luna was a single mom.
Tom had been observing Luna's daily life and had not noticed any sign of a husband, so he had assumed she was a single mom. I'd been on an overseas assignment, but when I heard that some guy was stalking my wife, I took some vacation time to come back. You scared my wife. Luna's husband was tall and handsome. Feet around him screamed polished, go-getter businessmen. My husband was completely taken aback by the sudden entrance of this dashing man. What on earth were you planning to do, sneaking onto my balcony like that?
I was just worried. I noticed your lights are usually on, but it was dark. So, I thought something might be wrong, and
Intruding into someone's home is a serious crime, you know?
Dr. Williams stared down my husband. Just then, the door to Dr. Williams' office burst open. Police! As they announced themselves, about 3 officers swiftly surrounded my husband. Tom, you'll need to come with us to the station. I'd already alerted the police. Hold on, please. I handed a piece of paper to my husband.
what is this?
It was a letter he had thrown away. I want to marry Luna, even if it means abandoning my own wife and kids. I read the line out loud. You've never even spoken to Luna, and you've already decided you want to marry her? My husband looked away awkwardly. He never intended to give that letter to Luna. He just wanted to vent his intense feelings.
You wrote such a letter. Creepy.
Luna shivered as she said this. My husband had imagined Luna as a quiet, kind single mother, but that was just an idealized version he had made up. The real Luna is outspoken, talkative, and strong-willed. It seems my husband was in love with a version of Luna that he had imagined, but she was nothing like the woman he had imagined. In fact, she was quite the opposite. Tom looked utterly shocked when faced with this reality. I handed him another piece of paper. It was divorce papers.
I can't be married to a criminal. Think about the child I'm carrying. Tom, let's get divorced right now.
I had brought his seal with me from home. In front of everyone, Tom reluctantly stamped the divorce papers.
Sorry for the delay. He's a stranger to me now. You see, officers, he's all yours.
I said this, and the police grabbed Tim's arms and escorted him out.
Don't ever come near me again. You're so creepy.
He was led away in a cop car, his shoulders slumped as Luna shouted at him, the woman he had longed for. During the police interrogation, more details came to light. Turns out Tom had made it a habit to stalk Luna from a distance, even after the renovation work on her apartment was complete. Busy day or night, even during work hours, he'd stand outside her building and watch. He also been snooping through Luna's mail. That's how he learned her name. Tom's late-night returns weren't because of office parties. He was keeping an eye on Luna's place on his own. He even watched her from a distance when she went shopping with her daughter or took her to activities. Tom said he felt like he was acting as their bodyguard. The police also spoke to his now former employer. Of course, the late-night returns due to office parties were all lies.
Carpenters need to be up early and focus on detailed work.
Making them sleep-deprived would impair their judgment, and that's bad for business. When the workday was over, we'd tell them to head straight home. The owner of the construction company where Tom used to work said that Tom was fired because he started slacking off and became unreliable, making too many mistakes. Apparently, Tom was taking extended breaks and wasn't returning to the job site promptly, leaving the company no choice but to let him go. And so, Tom was arrested. Luna and her daughter decided to move abroad, where Luna's husband was stationed, in part to avoid any potential issues with Tom. There was concern that if Tom were to be released, he might start stalking Luna again. After his release, Tom tried to get back into carpentry and went on job interviews. However, it didn't go well.
People don't get fired from that construction company unless they've, seriously messed up.
It was the gossip at the places where he interviewed. The company he was fired from was well regarded in the area, and the fact that he had been let go was a red flag, making him unhireable. Additionally, his criminal record was soon discovered, so even if he did get hired, it would only be a matter of time before he was fired again. Once a skilled carpenter, fell in love with an imaginary ideal woman, became a criminal and ruined his life. But unable to leverage his carpentry skills, Tom now barely gets by on low-paying, temporary jobs. He's stretched thin financially. But when Tom and I divorced, I made sure through our lawyers that he would be responsible for child support. So even with his maker income, Tom has numerous expenses and little money left for himself. I once ran into him in town, and he looked much older and worn out than his actual age. I decided to go back to my parents' home to give birth. I safely delivered a healthy baby girl. But both my parents and nearby relatives were thrilled about the new addition. Knowing my situation, they all chipped in, buying baby clothes as gifts and passing down childcare items they no longer needed. Life as a single mom might present various challenges down the road. Though, I feel it was the right decision to part ways with that man. I'm determined to raise my precious daughter to the best of my ability. Once my daughter is a bit older, I plan to put her in daycare while I go back to work and earn a steady income. To prepare for that time, I'm keeping busy but fulfilled studying for qualifications in between childcare tasks. Our daughter, Sarah, is turning 6 years old this year. She's a lively and energetic little girl who brings joy to our lives. My mother-in-law, who only had sons, was overjoyed when Sarah was born. However, as time passed, her behavior began to concern us. We realized that she doesn't just find our daughter cute. She wants to control her to fit her own ideals of what a cute little girl should be. I'm Katie, a 34-year-old working mom, and my husband, whom we'll call John, and I have been married for 7 years. We have a strong marriage, and I think we've built a reasonably happy home. We have one daughter, Sarah, who is turning 6 this year and starting elementary school now. She's an active little girl, and we're excited about her upcoming 6th birthday. John and I are already gearing up for celebrations, especially John, who adores our daughter so much that he's been secretly preparing her birthday present for months now. He always goes out of his way to make both me and Sarah happy. I have no complaints about him as a husband or father. I feel fortunate every day to have a family with such a wonderful person. However, there's one issue that bothers us. It's John's mother, my mother-in-law. As Sarah grows, we've started to have more clashes with my Mile about how she interacts with our daughter. This is causing both John and me quite a bit of concern. Except the root of the issue lies in Sarah's preferences and personality. Sarah has always leaned towards liking more boyish things. She prefers cool over cute and heroes over princesses. We don't know why she's developed these tastes, but by the time we noticed, that's just what she liked. She doesn't like typical girly things. Although at first surprised, John and I have accepted that these are just parts of her personality. Whatever she prefers, she is our lovely daughter. We want to create an environment where she feels free to like what she likes, without feeling the need to conform to others' expectations. My Mile, however, is not okay with this. John is one of 3 brothers, so my Mile, who had always wanted a daughter, was ecstatic when she found out we were having a girl. She even started preparing baby clothes and toys before we thought was necessary. She would always say, girls are just so much better. Look at all these cute things. it. Truth be told, her enthusiasm was a bit much even for me. Boys are always messy and break things. When I had my sons, nothing ever went as planned. So I'm thrilled to finally have a granddaughter. My mother-in-law, who always wanted to raise a daughter, consistently chooses items like glittery trinkets and frilly clothes. Every time we meet, she hands us such baby items, to the point that both my husband and I are honestly overwhelmed. We thought maybe she was finally letting out years of pent-up feelings, so we let her have her way. Well, more like we couldn't stop her if we tried. First, our daughter, who was born carrying all of my mother-in-law's expectations, turned out to be nothing like the girl my Mile had imagined. By the time she was 3 years old, she didn't like what her mother-in-law had picked out for her. She prefers blue over pink and pants over skirts. My mother-in-law wasn't pleased, and her dissatisfaction was also directed at us for accepting our daughter's preferences.
Why don't you dress her more cutely? She looks like a boy. I've been picking out such adorable stuff for her.
We've been nagged at like this about our daughter's tastes, but we had no intention of imposing adult preferences on her. If she's happy, then we're fine with it. We tried to get my mother-in-law to understand that this is our daughter's individuality and should be respected.
What are you talking about? The parents need to get it right now.
But our viewpoint didn't get through to my mother-in-law, who's always dreamed of having a granddaughter. Instead, we got lectured. Still, my husband and I didn't give up. We kept insisting to my mother-in-law that she should respect our daughter's choices. Ashley, my husband, who said if she couldn't understand, we would cut off all contact, seemed to finally get through to her. Gradually, she stopped meddling in our daughter's preferences, and we were somewhat relieved. Whether or not our daughter was aware of this ongoing tension between us and my mother-in-law, she continued to grow, being true to herself. The following year, our daughter, now at the age to start elementary school, when the three of us went to place an order for a backpack, she picked out a navy blue backpack. We had no objections and went ahead with the purchase. A few days after placing the order, my mother-in-law contacted me.
I heard from my son. Is it true that you chose a blue backpack for Sarah?
In a voice tinged with both dissatisfaction and concern, my mother-in-law called. Yes, because Sarah said she wanted it that way.
But is blue really okay? Won't she get teased at school?
Perhaps stung by my husband's earlier warning, she sounded more tentative, as though she were thinking of Sarah's best interests. And for meal, girl never chooses a blue one, instead of red or pink. At her age, I could understand her thought it's best to let her use what she likes. Indeed, I was surprised by the variety of colors and designs when we went to buy the backpack, much more diverse than in my own childhood. Even the shopkeeper said kids these days pick whatever they like without any hang-ups. It must be a sign of the times. Still, my mother-in-law ended the call somewhat dissatisfied. Lately, she doesn't voice her discontent directly. She just gives off an air of dissatisfaction. While she has stopped imposing her taste on Sarah, it still doesn't feel great. I can't help but wish she would finally accept Sarah for who she is. We've long since gotten the message that she's not thrilled about our daughter not conforming to her ideals. A few months after these back and forths with my mother-in-law, Sarah's birthday arrived. It was a holiday, so we had planned to spend the day at an amusement park and have a family dinner at home in the evening. Sarah was unusually excited. We left the house in high spirits and headed for the amusement park. We spent the entire day playing there. Sarah was so tired that she fell asleep in the car on the way home. We got home in the late afternoon, and I immediately started preparing a feast. My husband, taking advantage of Sarah's nap, started decorating the house. In the middle of all the hustle and bustle, the doorbell rang. Since I was busy cooking, my husband went to answer it. He returned to the kitchen holding a box of cake. My mom baked a birthday cake for Sarah. She has a friend who's a pastry chef, and they made it together. My husband says as he puts the cake, still in its box, into the fridge, "Grandkids really have a way of winning you over, huh? I never got a cake baked for me by my mom." He continues laughing. Surely she must have some fondness for her granddaughter, considering all she's ever said about our daughter. It's a kind gesture. We bought a cake too, but let's serve both. Sarah will be thrilled to see 2 cakes. S will be eating cake for a few days, huh? We both chuckle as I set the table. Once everything is ready, I pull out the cake from the fridge. My mother-in-law's cake is in a fancy box. Curious? I open the box and see an impressively decorated cake, almost too perfect to be homemade. The next moment, I slam the box into the trash. What the hell are you doing? That's the cake my mom brought. My husband yells at me as he's helping to set the table. This is trash. She doesn't get it. I shout back, urging him to look inside the trash. He opens the trash reluctantly, his face stern, and sees the cake barely holding its shape. "What is this?" he murmurs. It's an overly girly pink princess decorated cake, the kind Sarah dislikes the most. The white plate the princess is holding says in pink letters, "Let's be a normal girl from now on." Mill went through the trouble of making this cake. I can't help it if your mother-in-law can't accept Sarah's hobbies. To do this to her on her big birthday is unacceptable. There were some decorations made of sugar on the cake. Ribbons, hearts, and even a pink backpack were part of the cake decorations. My mom wants to say Sarah isn't normal, and that's why she made this. This isn't love, it's malice. I continue. That for me, Sarah is our lovely, precious daughter. For me, Sarah is our lovely, precious daughter. Today is a day our daughter was looking forward to. How crushed she would be if she saw this. I can't help but shed a tear.
Katie, I'm sorry.
My husband says, his eyes almost teary. It's not his fault, but his mom did something to hurt our beloved daughter. He's probably conflicted.
Wait here. So I'm gonna go have a talk with my mom.
He says, dashing out of the house. It takes only about 10 minutes by car to get to her place. His face is angrier than I've ever seen as he drives off. Just around 20 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Mile. I have no idea what is going on, but I answered the call.
My son told me he's going to disown me. It's all your fault. I can't take it anymore.
She screams over. My husband probably severed ties with her, realizing he stood up for us. By normal, do you mean that they do what your mother-in-law wants them to do? Then all of your mother-in-law's children are not normal. Thanks to Mill's outburst, I can keep my cool. I can't forgive my mother-in-law for bad-mouthing my daughter just because she doesn't fit the image of a grandchild she had in mind. So are individual human beings, each with their own unique thoughts and preferences. I think my husband is not sane from my mother-in-law's point of view. So as my husband says, let's get rid of him. I know my words probably won't get through to her. I hang up the phone and turn it off. Just then, my husband comes home.
I've cut ties with my Mile.
She said some really terrible things about Sarah. If she's going to be that kind of grandma, it's better she's not in our lives. My husband didn't go into details, but she must have said something really awful. He probably didn't want me to hear about it. I tell him about the call from my Mile and that I've also decided to cut ties with her.
I'm so sorry I did all that. Just forget about her from now on.
He says sadly, but then claps his hands and forces a smile.
Come on, it's your escape rest. I'll celebrate our adorable Sarah.
My husband starts reheating the cooled-down dinner. He must be the one hurting the most, yet he's still looking out for us. Whatever my Miles said, to make such a kind man decide to cut ties must have been really bad. I start to feel a little sorry for her, whom we might never see again.
I'll go wake up Sarah. Adso! Are we just getting the cake ready?
I hear my husband's gentle voice as he wakes up our daughter from the bedroom. I pull myself together and decide to celebrate our daughter wholeheartedly. Our daughter's happiness is what's most important to us. After that, we had a grand birthday celebration for our awakened daughter, Sarah. Seeing her genuinely happy face, I'm glad she didn't have to hear what my Mill said. As for my meal, I've had no further contact with her. She's been trying to contact my husband incessantly, but he's not responding. We've even decided to move away from our house that's close to his family home at his request. He will seriously cut his ties to his mother. I later heard from my husband that when he last visited his family home, my Mel had bought a backpack for Sarah, a cute pink one with all sorts of decorations. She intended to force Sarah to use it. That's probably why he chose to keep Sarah away from her. Sure, some people might mock Sarah for her tastes in the future, but there's nothing wrong with liking what you like. We want to support and validate our daughter's feelings wholeheartedly, because that's what will make her happy. As long as my Mile doesn't understand that, we will have no further dealings with her.
My name's Heather. I married my husband Kevin after dating for 3 years. I thought my marriage would be smooth sailing, but it took an unexpected turn. Ever since my father-in-law passed away, My married life completely changed. I used to coach dance once a week, but ever since I started living with my Mile, she labels me as a deadbeat because I work just once a week and constantly berates me.
Kevin is having a tough time at his new job, and you're just goofing off as always.
I've told you time and again, this is my job. I make as much as a regular part-time job, even if it's just once a week. It's the truth. Do you want to see my paycheck?
Nah, you're just a lying, shut-in deadbeat.
That was pretty much my daily life. My father passed away when I was young, and my mother raised me on her own. I didn't want to cause her extra worry when she finally felt relieved upon my marriage. I began to dread even seeing my meals face and increasingly started to stay in my room.
By the way, now Terry's, I'll be going out of state for work next week, so I won't be home for about a week.
Out of state? What work? That's just a vacation. Leaving your husband behind to have fun was unthinkable in our day.
It was planned in advance, and Kevin is okay with it.
You probably forced him to say that. He's not happy about it.
Enough is enough.
Finally, I reached my breaking point and stood up to my meal. That night, I told Kevin everything that had happened.
Did you enjoy your trip out of state?
Yes, thanks. I'm about to board the plane.
Great for you. Now we can finally stop living with a deadbeat wife.
We've moved so you don't have a home to come back to. Just stay out of state.
What? What do you mean?
We moved while you were goofing off. We terminated the lease on the apartment.
Well, that might be for the best. Take care.
Don't you dare show your face again. I'll make sure you two get divorced. I'll make you regret everything.
And she hung up. A month later, she called again.
Hello.
But you're influencing Bob and you, making a fool out of me at the police station. I had to wait forever.
What are you talking about? I've done nothing.
Don't lie. You told him to refuse to be my bail guarantor. Kevin would never do that.
So you got arrested?
I went to Bob's new place, and only my stuff was there. I found the address in the moving documents, but no one answered the doorbell.
I thought the door was broken, but then another resident came, and it opened fine. When I tried to follow them in, the doorman stopped me.
Well, of course, it's a security door.
I didn't know. Why did he have to move to such a fancy place?
The doorman called Kevin, but he said not to let me in. When I argued, they called the police.
So you got arrested and Kevin refused to be your guarantor. Is that the issue?
Yes. I'm sure you're the one who made him do it. Thanks to you. I got yelled at by my relatives and my own mother.
I've told you. I didn't do anything.
Talking to a liar like you is pointless. Are you in touch with Kevin? You convince him to live with me. I'll be in a tight spot without him.
Sorry, that's not gonna happen.
What? Then pay me alimony. I'll let everything slide.
You're as outrageous as ever.
Keith has been saying for ages that he wants to divorce a bad omen like you and marry a more wonderful woman. Plus, he said he's tired of your food, which is always too rich for him. He also said Mom's cooking is the best in the world. You've made my precious only son go through such hard and sad times. So cough up $100,000 in alimony.
Are you delusional?
We'll definitely divorce.
Is that so? Right. Kevin?
Huh. What did you just say? Is Kevin there?
Yes, he is. I thought so and asked Kevin. Would you like to talk to him?
What? Mom? Kevin, why haven't you come to pick me up? What are you doing?
I can't just leave work. Mom. Besides, even if I weren't working, I probably wouldn't have come.
What? What's gotten into you? You are never this cold-hearted. Has that woman poisoned you too?
What are you talking about? I heard everything you've been saying. Always mean-spirited, huh?
Listen to me. Kevin, you're just being deceived by that woman? I have more life experience. I'm telling you, it's all Heather's fault, not mine. For all we know, she could have abandoned her husband and gone off with another man on some out-of-state trip. Scary stuff.
So you're accusing her of cheating? From what I heard, it's clear that you're the one lying. Mom.
I didn't want to believe it, but Heather was right. I'm sorry. Heather? Why? I'm not the bad one here.
Still saying that? Mom, you've disliked Heather just because Dad favored her. And you've been mean to her since Dad died.
That's right. What's wrong with that? Agency approved their marriage, but a daughter raised by a single mom isn't good news.
Enough! What's wrong with being raised by a single parent?
Emily's mom is a respectable woman who raised her on her own. She's more honorable than you. At this point, let me be clear. I have no intention of living with you. What? So the new house isn't for us to live together. You assumed that on your own. I never said I'd live with you. I'm going to live with Heather.
We're planning to live with my mom, actually. She's been having a hard time with her knees, and we're worried.
Plus, we rented a slightly bigger apartment for when we have kids. What is this? Am I dreaming?
This is reality. I can't help it.
When I was a daughter-in-law, I had it way worse. As past any woman who can't endure isn't fit to be Kevin's wife.
It's really appalling that you do to someone else what you hated having done to you.
Fine. I get it. You're an ungrateful woman. I'm going to tell your mother how much trouble you're causing.
A threat doesn't work anymore. I've told my mom everything, and we've decided to cut ties.
Cut ties? Kevin wouldn't do that, would he?
Between the harassment and threats behind my back, I'm more disappointed than anything.
I can't forgive you, and I don't want to be involved for a while. Don't say that. Please. I'm not working. I can barely make ends meet with my pension. After paying utilities...
So you're saying you can scrape by? Are you trying to live with us just for some extra spending money?
To be frank, the reason we've been able to live comfortably is all thanks to Heather.
She's not unemployed or anything. Heather earns $3,000 a month. What? Or $3,000? I never heard that.
We've been telling you I work. We just didn't mention the amount.
If you told me from the start, that would have been different. I never thought you were actually working. I'm really sorry, forgive me. It's okay, but it doesn't mean I forgive you. I still can't after all the mistreatment.
It's okay, but it doesn't mean I forgive you. I still can't after all the mistreatment. My feelings won't change.
I promise to help with the chores from now on and stop being abusive.
I'll even cut back on unnecessary shopping and save money. So please, give me another chance.
You can live on your pension. If you want extra money, get a job. But then nobody can complain.
You expect an old lady like me to work.
This old lady? Come on. Mio, you're still spry. You even made it all the way to our new apartment. You're hardly old and frail.
What did you say? You know, now that you mention it, Heather's mom is 9 years older than you, but she's still working.
She said she doesn't want to be a burden, so she'd contribute financially if she moved in with us.
I really am sorry for everything up to now. But won't you give me another chance?
Elle can do. I'm hanging up now.
And so my mother-in-law ended up living alone, and a new chapter began for Kevin, my mom, and me as a trio. After a while, it seems Emil started working part-time at a factory. Whether it's her lack of work experience or just her personality, she's reportedly not getting along with her coworkers due to her arrogant attitude. People don't change that easily, it seems. Since then, we've received several requests from Mill to lend her money. Kevin is frustrated by it and is seriously talking about cutting ties with her.